Okay, this week we are going to talk about how to get investors to come to you one post at a time, how to raise capital from social media. So this was the presentation that I gave last week in the Charleston Mastermind. And if you missed that episode, definitely go back and check it out because it was a really good one. But this was the presentation that I gave to all of the Mastermind members when we were in Charleston. And I feel like this is kind of my superpower. In the last 12 months, we've raised over $2 million in capital just directly off of social media. And I don't think a lot of people are doing this because either they don't know how, or B, they're intimidated, or C, they don't feel like they have the time. And so I really just want to go over everything that we're doing or we have done to be able to do that without spending hours and hours and hours every single day doing this. So, I should also say, if you're listening to the audio version, if you want to see the slides, you can check this out on YouTube at the same time. And that way it's a little bit more visual for you. So, okay, let's jump into this. First things first, nobody gives a shit about private lending. In fact, very few people even know what it is. And so the thing that I see a lot of people do, especially new people who are trying to gain some sort of a following on social media, is they try to talk about private lending. Nobody knows what private lending is. It is such a small, teeny tiny niche topic that you're not going to gain a lot of mass adoption. And in my opinion, especially capital investors who are looking to invest capital, they are not going to be searching for private lending content on YouTube, typically, more often than not. It's more people who are your aunt or your uncle, or just small people who are like, I've got some money, I don't know what to do with it. They don't even know that private lending is a thing or that it exists. And so that is not the best way to go about raising capital. I would not post about private lending. It doesn't make sense. So a lot of people that I hear, they'll say, well, I don't really know what I'm going to post about then. I don't know what content I should make. And the answer is, I don't really know either. I post about finance, just general finance. If you're not following me currently, go ahead and follow me at Bryce Matheson on Instagram, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. I just post about general finance because it still genuinely interests me. I shit on Dave Ramsey a lot. I talk about budgeting and saving, but also investing and growing your wealth and doing all these things to kind of build your lifestyle. And so that's what I talk about, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to talk about that. You could talk about the pros and cons of the stock market, or you could talk about financial freedom, or you could talk about passive income, or you could talk about different niches inside of that because it's still relevant, or you could be more creative and think about something entirely different. But for the people who have no idea whatsoever what they want to talk about, this is what I recommend. So there's a quote that said, think about the thing that pisses you off the most, then reverse engineer that to make it your mission. So a lot of times I think that people can think of something that they dislike or despise a lot more than they like. If I were to ask you what was the worst part of your day, you could think of 5-10 things off the spot. But if you had to say, what was the best part of my day or best part of my week, it might take you a little bit longer to do that. So if you have no idea what you want to talk about, maybe think about something that just drives you nuts and maybe turn that into some sort of a thing, because I think that's a good starting point. Okay, next slide. Views don't matter until they do. And here's a couple of examples. So on the screen, again, if you're listening, there are 3 different reels that I have posted that got a ton of views on my story. So the first reel that I posted was the first one that ever went viral. And you can see that it got 3.9 million views. And out of that 3.9 million views, I got 1,000 new followers, but I got 0 leads. 0 qualified leads who wanted to invest with us. Now, this was at the very beginning. I think I maybe had 1,500 followers on Instagram. And here I am acting like I'm this big. I'm not big on Instagram. I think we've got around 10,000 followers or so, which is honestly plenty. You really don't need a lot to raise capital. But at the time that I was doing this, I was really just kind of throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck. And for whatever reason, this video popped off. So it was me sitting in a drive-thru, and I've got my phone and I'm recording. And there is a flatbed trailer at the drive-thru window just right ahead of me ordering food. And there's a bumper sticker that says, "Fat girls welcome, it's a 1-ton." And here I am I just thought it was funny. So here I am just chuckling and laughing. And on the back of the flatbed is a dirt bike. And keep you in mind, this was in Idaho. Honestly, I don't know why I posted it. I really don't. I just was trying to gain traction on social media. I thought it was funny. For whatever reason, this one blew up. But the problem was, this was not my target audience. What I got was 1,000 new followers of redneck, Idaho, dirt biker, missing teeth, trailer trash, you name it. It was, these people don't have any money. These are not the people that I want to cater to. And so I realized, it doesn't matter the views. The views don't matter. To a point, kind of. So then I go on to the second video, which is showing, which to date is my most popular viewed video. It's I think it's at almost 9 million views now on social media. That video got me 2,100 new followers and it got me 17 leads. So out of 9 million people that watched that, 17 leads. That ratio is not very good. But this was the video where I talked about the IRS. So it's me sitting at this exact same desk, and there's a picture frame that is facing away from the camera, so you can't see what's on it. And so it's me working on my desk, and there's a caption that says, sometimes when I get stressed at work, I stop and remind myself who I'm doing all of this for. And then I pick up the picture frame, and you still can't see, and then finally the camera switches to over my shoulder, and you can see that it's a framed picture of the IRS logo. And so I think this one resonated a lot with a lot of people because people hate paying taxes, and it was just funny, right? And it was still kind of loosely related to my niche, which is finances, but it wasn't exactly like hyper targeted for what I wanted to do. The last video that I wanted to show was, this one was a perfect match for my avatar. So this last video, it got 337,000 views. It's probably a little bit higher than that now. 770 new followers, but it got me over 250 leads. Now think about that. I got significantly less views, like 1/20th of the views that I got on the previous video, but I got more than 10 times the amount of leads. Now this video, what it is it's literally just me. It's just some B-roll that I'm recording. It's me in my front yard taking my leaf blower and leaf blowing my driveway. And on the caption, it says, investments that I don't fuck around with as a financially free real estate investor in my 30s. And then down in the caption, I go over and say, hey, I don't do crypto. I don't do Bitcoin. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do this. And so it made me become an expert in the space, or at least I catered as being an expert in the space. I got a lot of people who reached out, and in my DMs, they sent me the word invest saying, hey, I want to learn more about your investment opportunities. So long story long, all that to say, views don't matter unless they're the right views. You don't want dirt bike redneck Idaho views. You want hyper-specific targeted views. And I would way rather get way fewer views and significantly higher leads, higher engagement, and specifically target your avatar. So keep that in mind. Again, there's a screenshot on the screen showing my DMs, and it's just all of these people saying invest, 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 invest. And then I reach out manually to each one of these people and I say, hey, I would love to tell you more about our investment opportunities, which is investing in private real estate notes. Some people don't qualify. Some people don't have the money to do it. I maybe converted, 2 to 5% of these, which cool. That's great, right? Like it's the long game. So the other thing I will say is, along with the views, followers don't matter, but it's still a very nice vanity metric. And what I mean by that is I typically look at my average follower to view ratio. And so, for example, let's say I have 1,000 followers, and my average view, like if you look at your Instagram feed, if you're looking at that and the last, 8 videos or whatever, throw out any outliers that got super low views or super high views, look at just the average number of views that you're getting on that video. If you have 1,000 followers and you average around 1,000 views per video, that's really good. Like if you get significantly more than that, like if you're getting 2,000 views and you only have 1,000 followers, your follower to view ratio is off the chart. That's amazing. So if you have a 1-to-1 ratio, that's excellent. If you have less than a 1-to-1, even better. That's very difficult to do. Most people do not do that. If you're like 2 to 3-to-1, that's still really good. That's still very, very good. 4-to-1 is average. 5-to-1 or higher is pretty poor. So if you have 1,000 followers, but you're getting 200 views per video, not necessarily a great ratio. So, and just as an example of that, so on the screen, you'll see my average views hover somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 per video. My followers are around 10,000. And so, I'm in that 2 to 3 range, which is pretty good. If you're less than that, I would say you definitely need to do some work, become a little bit more creative. Now, this is why I say followers don't matter, because it's just a vanity metric. So if you're watching this, I share a friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine, and so that's why I feel okay to share this. But he's got 100,000 followers on Instagram. His average views on social media are around 2,500 to 4,000. Think about that. That's like a 25-to-1 follower to view ratio, which is quite poor. Now, I personally know this guy. I know that he has kind of pivoted and changed some things, so he's not as heavily focused on growing his social media. And so, that's okay. It's not his focus. But if it is your focus and you're 25 to 1, that's pretty poor. So just keep that in mind. Followers do not matter to a point. It's still a good metric to gauge. Okay, next slide that I talked about is having a thing. And what I mean by a thing is like having something that you're known for. So as I was giving this presentation, I showed a picture of Gary Vee on the screen. And if you know anything about Gary Vee, what is the one thing that he wants to buy? He wants to buy the New York Jets. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't. But if you know anything about Gary Vee, his end goal in life is to buy the New York Jets. And so even though Gary Vee, his content is not catered around buying the New York Jets, anytime you think of the New York Jets, you may loosely associate that with Gary Vee. Same thing. Alex Hormozi, he never skips dessert. He never skips dessert. Maybe leg day could also be another one, but he posted a ton about never skipping dessert. And so Alex does not talk about, like, his content is heavily focused towards business, but he just has some other like little nuanced things that he shares and talks about, which just gives him a personality, lets you know that like he's a real person. And then anytime you think about dessert, you might loosely associate that with Alex Hormozi, which is a really good thing. You want to stay present and top of mind in people's memory. So, and then the last thing is I showed a picture of myself. If you follow me on social media, you know that I love drinking White Monsters. And then I went a little hyperbolic and I said, Bryce only drinks White Monsters because it's not just an energy drink. They're the liquid embodiment of ambition, bottled lightning forged in the frostbitten heart of a productivity god. So I don't know. That made the audience chuckle, but I love White Monster energy drinks. I think they are fucking delicious and I think they're the best thing on the planet. And I kid you not, I probably get anywhere from 10 to 20 reels every single day without fail from random people I don't even know, just sending me funny reels about White Monsters, which I love because people think about me. Anytime they see a White Monster, they associate that with me, which again keeps people forefront of mind. So it doesn't have to be your main thing. It should not be your main thing, but you should have something that's just like a random like thing that you do. Maybe you like pickleball, maybe you like knitting, maybe you do this thing. I don't know. There's another guy that I follow. His name is Eric. I don't know if you've seen his stuff. He's massive, but anytime he gets on a plane, he will take a video and he'll record it on his story, and it'll be where the jet bridge matches with the edge of the plane, and he will grade the gap. You know, if there's like hardly any light that's coming between the jet bridge and the metal on the plane, he'll give it a 10 out of 10. And more often than not, he's like, come on, United, do a little bit better, 5 out of 10. And so no matter what, anytime I board a plane, I look at that gap. I say, is this a 5? Is this a 7? Is this a 8.5? And I think of this guy. So just have something fun and stupid, and it'll make people think of you. Okay. Next slide, you absolutely have to have a curiosity gap. And this is what I mean. So a lot of people, when they make content, they will say, today we are making chocolate chip cookies. And I can tell you already, somebody has already scrolled and swiped. Nobody gives a shit. There's no curiosity. There's no like, what is going on? For example, if you were watching the movie Taken by Liam Neeson and he were to have, gotten his daughter back within the first 15 minutes, would you have stayed and sat through the remaining 2 hours of that video? No, because there's nothing to deliver at the end. It's just fluff. There's nothing there. And so you absolutely have to create this content gap. So for example, the other day I saw a reel, and it opened up. There was no words. There was nothing, but it was a guy with one of those giant wooden spools, like that have copper wrapped around it, and he's rolling it into the frame. And then he takes one of those empty 5-gallon blue water jugs, and then he's like duct taping it to this thing, and then he's drilling holes, and he's like filling it up with styrofoam and doing all these things. And like, you're just so intrigued. You're like, what is he doing? And it's that curiosity gap that keeps you until the very end. So I gave an example of one that I did, and it's a picture my wife was filming me. I have my food in Chipotle. You can see the Chipotle logo on the bag, and it's me reaching in and grabbing something out of the bag. And the caption is, when I'm rich, I won't tell anybody, but there will be signs. So it's me reaching in, and I pull out my food, and then I pull out my chips, and I pull out this. And then there's a little bit of a delay, and I'm reaching in, and I'm digging around, and I'm trying to find something in my bag. And people are glued to the screen because like, what is he going to grab? What is he going to get out of the bag? And at the last minute, I pull out a little side cup of guacamole and I put it on top of my food. And it's just funny, right? Like, when I'm rich, I won't tell anybody, but there will be signs because I can finally afford chips and guac. And so it's just that suspense and anticipation to make people stick to the end that is going to make your content go viral. Because if you can keep your audience pinned to that video for at least 6 seconds, I guarantee you will get at least 100,000 views, if not more. Seriously, that's all there is to it. The algorithm will reward people for staying on your content and viewing it longer. If you can get people to stay longer, you will get more views. I guarantee it. Okay, next thing I talk about is the platforms to focus on. I exclusively focus on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I do not focus on TikTok, LinkedIn, or Snapchat. I have tried all of them. The ones that have the highest click-through ratio are Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. A lot of people, especially like last year, well, maybe not, maybe it's even been longer than that now, 3 or 4 years, when TikTok was first brand new, people were flocking to it because they were getting millions and millions of views. But as I said, views don't matter. Views really do not matter unless you have people converting, clicking through, clicking on the link in bio, filling out your form, becoming a lead. And I have gotten lots of views on TikTok. And I can tell you, I have had 0 people click through my bio. The leads, the click-through ratio is just garbage. Same thing with LinkedIn. I think maybe I'm just not good at LinkedIn, but I think there is a little bit more on LinkedIn. There's probably something that I haven't hacked there yet. For me, it just doesn't quite cater to my personality, but I think it's just not great as far as, short form content. Same thing with Snapchat. That being said, Instagram as well as Facebook, you may or may not know this, but when you post a reel to Instagram, there's also a little toggle there that says post to Facebook as well, which is nice because then you get double the views and you don't have to, copy it and post it onto the same platform a second time. So that's been really good for me. Facebook, for whatever reason, has been making a huge comeback, at least from what I've seen. Like I posted a video on Instagram, it got around 16,000 views. The exact same video without me doing anything. I just posted it at the same time with that little toggle, got over 1 million views. And funny enough, it was another video about Chipotle. So that one popped off on Facebook. I don't know why, but I feel like Facebook is making a comeback. And last thing is YouTube as well. YouTube is very close, maybe even higher than Instagram as far as people clicking through to your link. So if I was to start fresh and focus on a particular platform, I would not focus on all of them. I would just pick 1, maybe 2 and go all in. And I would absolutely pick Instagram or YouTube and pick your style, right? Like if you're more into short form content, which a lot of people are right now, I would probably heavily cater towards Instagram. If you prefer making longer form content, then I would probably post on YouTube, and then you could take those and clip them up into shorts and then put it on to Instagram as well. So, take that for what it's worth. Okay. Next thing that I would say is do not try to automate your creativity. People can tell. So when I first started making content around private lending, I think I had the same thought that everybody else does. I said, okay, I am going to record a podcast once a week. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that episode, I'm going to clip it up into 7 different clips. I'm just going to post 1 per day, each day of the week. And I can offload this to a VA and I can do this and it's going to be super easy and it'll take me no time whatsoever. I wouldn't do that, mainly because that's what everybody does. It gets boring and nobody really cares. So on the screen, if you're watching this right now, anybody, and I'm sure you've seen them, there's a Zoom recorded podcast. And so it's like a person on top, a person on bottom, they're talking back and forth. And it's just a podcast episode that they've clipped up and posted into shorts. Nobody gives a shit. Everybody knows that the quality is garbage unless it's somebody who's like already famous. If you're watching a video or a Zoom recorded podcast of Hormozi or, I don't even know, like some other famous person, like they already have this notoriety. You're going to pay attention because of who they are, not necessarily because of the clip. If you're trying to build a following on social media, a Zoom recorded podcast is not the way to go. I guarantee you it'll get 200 views. Now, the only flip side to that is if you do in-person podcasts with a high quality camera recording, and I'm sure you've seen these, but it's like you've got a nice DSLR or mirrorless camera like this one that is recording you, and you've got different angles. It switches back and forth between the views. There's also a different energy when you do it in person, and so I think your audience can tell. And so I would say that's the one exception, is if it's in person, that is a little bit different. Now, the only thing I would say is still don't post one of those every single day for 7 days. Like I would maybe do 1 to 2 of those per week max and sprinkle them in sparingly because your audience will get tired of them. Right now, everybody is in this era of authenticity. And so think like iPhone camera. Any video recorded with your iPhone, just like this, doing whatever, whether it's yourself talking or someone recording you or whatever, people like the vertical format. They like that it just feels more authentic. If it doesn't feel as produced, or it's just a little bit more raw. And so that may change. Maybe we'll kind of make this shift back to more like highly produced videos, but I wouldn't worry necessarily about your videos being super, super highly produced because you have an iPhone in your pocket and it'll work just fine. Okay, let me talk about now the Instagram blueprint, or basically what I do every single day, because I know a lot of you thinking are like, I just don't have time to post the content. I felt the same way. I didn't feel like I had enough time, but I promise you that you do. So my Instagram blueprint is to have 1 reel per day that I post. I have 3 story posts per day, and it takes me around 20 minutes per day. Seriously, that's what I mean. And so a lot of people are getting like, I can't do a reel a day. I can't do 3 posts a day. I guarantee you can. It's not as bad as you think. And let me make it just a little bit easier for you. So as far as reels go, I would highly encourage you to have a backlog of reels. So what I do is, you can go through my feed and you can see me repost the same reel over and over again. Obviously, I wait like a couple weeks or a couple months between, but I repost the same videos all the time. And chances are, if it went viral once, it'll probably go viral again. So do it. So what I do is every time I make a reel, prior to actually publishing it and saying post, in the editor window, there is a small button that says save or download, or I can't say exact. It doesn't say anything. It's just a little down arrow icon. And so clip it up, add the music, add the text and the captions and the transitions, whatever you want to do. And then before you post it, be sure to save it. And what that'll do is it'll save that video to your camera roll, and it'll save it in a higher quality recording, because after you post that, there's no way to go back and download it. You have to use like a third-party service, like a Instagram Reel downloader, and the quality is not going to be the same. And I've noticed that if I have posted it, used the third-party downloader, and then reposted it back on my feed, it does not do as well, because it's just like people can tell it's just not, the quality is not the same. So I always save those reels. And then on a day where I'm just too busy or I don't have time, I literally just go into my camera reel. I have a folder of all of my past reels. I go tap, post, add a quick little caption, and you're done. So it's a huge hack. Initially, you don't have any reels, right? And so you have to kind of build up this backlog, but that has saved me a ton of time when I don't have time to think of something new, or I'm just kind of in a rush. Also, I know you do it because I do it. Everybody, when you're laying in bed at night, or, just after work, you're laying on the couch and you're just like doom scrolling on your phone. I always save reels and use that as inspiration. So I have a little folder inside of Instagram. There's a little like flag icon or something that you can click on, and it'll say save. And so you can save this reel so you can refer back to it next time. So on a day where I'm like, I have some time, I don't want to repost something that I've already posted, but I need something and I don't know what to do and I need some inspiration, I'll just go back to that folder, and I have like literally thousands of reels that I can recreate, and not like one for one, like copy it, but like it gives me some inspiration. I'm like, let me put my own little like spin or tweak on this, typically with, finance content or the finance industry. So when I'm in a rut, that helps a lot with like the time savings as well. The other thing that I've learned with reels is captions typically mean nothing. And what I mean by that is I shouldn't say they don't mean anything, but I wouldn't put as much emphasis on it, I guess is what I'm saying, is like the text below is not as important as the actual content, which like no duh, but I feel like a lot of people in the past, especially with hashtags and things like that, they would put hashtag finance, hashtag passive income, hashtag this, hashtag that. Hashtags do nothing. They're garbage. The only thing that they do is allow people to group content and search for it, but nobody does that anymore. So in the past, people would say like, oh, I'll put this certain hashtag, and then my content is going to be like super discoverable because there's all these people searching for these hashtags. A, nobody does that anymore, and B, Instagram has since changed the algorithm, so that's not the case. So use hashtags if you want. Like occasionally I will, but don't get in this trap of thinking that it's going to artificially like boost your content so that other people will see it. The other thing is, I like to call it jab, 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 hook. And so basically what I mean by that is every reel should not necessarily have like a hard sell or a hard like buy my thing or do this or do that. Sometimes you just have to give goodwill, like teach somebody something or give them a snippet of information or make something funny for them or whatever have you. If you give them that right hook, you're losing goodwill with every single punch. And so I'd say just like be very subtle, be very subtle. And then when you have something big, then you could do that. That's fine. But I would not do it all the time. Along with that, when I have a CTA or a call to action, I would not put the actual call to action on the reel, meaning like the text itself. So a lot of people like have their reel, it'll go through the whole thing. And then at the very last slide, it'll say like, DM me the word this to do this and this. I have found for whatever reason, and maybe this is something that Instagram is doing behind the scenes, or maybe just it turns, off the viewers, that your reel doesn't do as well. And so I don't say DM me this word or do this or do that. But what I will do is I will put it in the caption, and even better is I will put it in a pinned comment. So few people will read the caption. I shouldn't say few, but fewer people read the caption. More people read the comments. So what I'll do is I still have a caption. It may not be like super lengthy, but what I will do is I will take my call to action. I will write it as a comment on my own video, and then I will pin that, because then it'll stay at the top. Anybody that goes in to read the comments on that video will see that comment, and I get way, way, way more engagement. Now, in the past, I haven't done this, and I've just put the call to action at the bottom of the video. And sometimes I have a video that like goes sort of viral. And by viral, I mean like 50 to 100,000 views, not mega viral, but like higher than average. And I regret not putting that in the caption and pinning it, or excuse me, not in the caption, in the comments and pinning it, because I get significantly more engagement there when I do that. So just a couple of tidbits and tricks there. So those are kind of my secrets around creating one reel per day. I promise it's not as difficult as it sounds. I know it sounds really intimidating. It's not. Okay, next thing, let's talk about hooks. Everybody knows that the hook is like the biggest thing. If you don't have a good hook, like I talked about before when I was like, today we're baking chocolate chip cookies. No, that's a dumb hook. Nobody's going to pay attention. I've gathered a list of hooks on my phone because I reuse them all the time, and it gets people interested and to watch. So for example, one thing that I like to use is the hook, if you take away anything from this story or this reel, it's this one thing. So I use that all the time. It's like, if you take away anything from this reel, it's this one thing. And then I go in and talk about, don't listen to Dave Ramsey, or be sure to like invest instead of budget, or whatever it is. That's probably a dumb example, but that one really gets people to stop scrolling. The other thing that I'll say, like another one I've used is, wait, have we talked about this thing? Or, have we talked about this? And people are like, well, what is it? And so that seems to do very well. Another really good one is, so I'm scrolling Instagram and then I see this shit. And a lot of people, oh, like, what is he talking about? And then they like really get curious, like, what is he going to say? So again, it's all about stopping the scroll. Like, people have to be like entertained or engaged in some way. And so having these hooks that you can use right off the bat are super powerful. Another one that I like is, does anyone else feel confused as hell? And then you can go in and talk to your thing. Another one that I like is, and what people don't understand is ... something. And I like this one because it almost feels like you're like mid-conversation. People are like, wait, did I miss something? Or I don't know. It grabs their attention because they're like, oh, what are we talking about? So, and what I don't understand is, and then go into it. Another common one is, stop doing, XYZ thing, or you want to know the dumbest thing, ... So they're kind of all repetitive, but I cycle through those regularly, and they seem to do really well at having a good hook that people kind of, are interested in. Okay, moving on to the stories. I typically do three a day minimum, and I do no more than 10 maximum. There's a sweet spot, right? So 3 times a day is fine. 5 times a day is fine. Once you get past like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, people get bored and they just like swipe and go on to the next person. And so I'm sure you've seen it before where people have had like all those little teeny tiny like lashes or slashes at the top of their story, and they've put like 200 on for the day, and it's just like, I don't have time with this, and just go next. Like, no, I don't have time for that. So there is a sweet spot. I would also say, a lot of people ask me like, Bryce, I don't know what to share. There's all sorts of stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be like unique or, newly curated content. Like, just talk about what you're doing. You can also reshare a reel of somebody else's. I do that all the time. Obviously, reshare a reel of your own. Any other like semi-applicable thought. For example, the other day, I think Robert Kiyosaki posted something on his Instagram, which was so stupid. He was talking about how like paying off debt was one of the biggest financial risks ever. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but that was the gist of what he said. And so I reposted that, and I'm like, I get what he's saying. I know what he's saying, but I also disagree with this. Like, you should pay off your debt. I wouldn't say paying off your debt is one of the biggest financial crises that you could run into. Obviously, it's Robert Kiyosaki, so he's got his own avatar and audience that he's catering towards. But that was on my story. I just commented on that and reposted it, and I got, some engagement from that. So basically, any semi-applicable thought as I'm going through other people's content, you can share and, whatever. Now, I would make sure to stay away from any super polarizing topics like religion or politics or whatever. I wouldn't really call her a friend, but an acquaintance that I know on Instagram that she had like 110,000 followers. And then around the election, she posted a story of her wearing a MAGA hat. And overnight, she lost 30,000 followers. Now, I don't care if you're like Republican or Democrat or wherever you are, but I would just stay away from politics on Instagram because it is so polarizing. You're going to lose people. And also, you're going to gain a more dedicated audience. But the goal is we want to kind of cater to everybody so that we cast this broad net rather than being super, super like hyper focused and niched on this other stuff. Okay, the other thing that you can talk about, and earlier I said, do not talk about private lending. I would not make reels about private lending. But if you're talking about loans that you funded that day or loans that you paid off that day, absolutely talk about that in your story because this is where you become more authentic. This is just you personally. And if people don't like it, they can mute your stories. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Talk about your wife, talk about your kids, talk about the movie theater you went to. Like all that kind of stuff is fine because you stay front of mind and present. Now, last thing I will say regarding stories is there's something that I call the 24-hour story reset hack. And so what I will do is occasionally on my stories, I will go through and I'll post pictures of like fix and flip before and afters or something. And then at the end, I'll have a call to action and say, hey, we're looking for private investors. Now, the problem is that for whatever reason, let's say you have 1,000 followers, you can go down and you look at your stories and you can see on any given day, you may have 100 to 250 views per story. Probably not even that high, maybe like closer to 100. What happens though is if you want to show your story to more people, what you do is you let all of your stories expire. So you don't post anything for 24 hours. You wait an additional 24 hours and then you go and post something. That exact same post that you would have posted a day earlier, rather than getting 100 story views, will get 500 story views or relative to what your follower count is. And the reason for this is, I think, at least, I don't know, is that Instagram is kind of giving you a thank you for saying, oh, he's back. We want to push his stuff. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I found it to be very true. So if I am like ready to do a plug and I say, hey, we're looking for investors for such and such deal, I'll let everything expire. I'll wait one full day. I will not post anything. And then I'll post my call to action and it will get way more views than it would have the day before where I had already posted some other content. So keep that kind of in your back pocket as a little bit of a hack. Okay, so just a couple other like miscellaneous closing thoughts that I have around social media. One thing that you need to be careful on is soliciting deals on social media because that could fall under SEC securities laws. So one thing that you cannot do is say, unless you're running a fund with the 506c and you have accredited investors and you're allowed to solicit, is you cannot say like, hey, I'm trying to raise capital for XYZ thing. That falls under general solicitation. Most people, because they don't have a fund, you cannot do that. And if you have a 506b, you also can't do that because that falls under general solicitation. You cannot do that. But what you can do is you can say, hey, we just funded this deal. My investors made $12,000 and just leave it at that. And people are like, oh, how do I become an investor? If they reach out to you directly, that's different than you broadcasting and saying, hey, we're looking for funds. We have this deal. So that's one thing that you can do. Be a little careful with that. But anyway, just keep that in mind. You need to be careful around like SEC security laws. The other kind of like closing thought I had is in the past, I would get really worked up around comments and people that would like hate on my videos. Now I truly don't give a shit. It doesn't it's more humorous than anything. But in the past, I would get into like the DMs and I would like hate on them or I'd like respond to the comments, blah, 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 and I now realize that my response to them is my perception of myself. And so I just need to like realize I can't cater to everybody. I will never cater to anybody. There are always going to be people who disagree with me and that's okay. And I don't care. And you have to just let the haters roll off your back. That being said, I do occasionally like to do like a Trolls of the Month content or reel or something where I just make fun of the stupid, ridiculous comments. Those, for whatever reason, those videos seem to do really well for me, just because most people are not too ridiculous and they kind of agree with me. But for whatever reason, those seem to do well as well. So how's that for information overload? Hopefully that's decently helpful. But that was the presentation I gave to the mastermind in Charleston. And so basically my hope is if I can get you to where basically sidestep all the mistakes that I made, get you to making content faster and raising capital more quickly, and then it'll all be worth it. So if you have any follow-up questions, I'm all ears. As always, please reach out to us at podcast@joinlender.com. That's lendr.com. And I would be happy to, give any additional tips or tricks or insights. I'm also curious to hear what works well for you and your content if you are making content that I maybe am lacking or missing. So all that to say, take that for what it's worth. Hopefully you gain something valuable, and we will catch you next week. Thanks for listening.